Call the meeting to order. If you could please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there any member that would like to remove any item from the consent agenda? I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Paul Ryder,
Second.
second by Tracy Martin. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried unanimous. Next item is the financial report. I wanted to give a short update on the fiscal position of the county. Property tax collection was a little lower than last year. I would probably attribute that to people not paying the whole year. I'm just talking year-over-year numbers. So that put us a little bit further behind revenues from 2019, about $121,000 year-to-date, 7.6%. Good news is we're halfway through the year. Our most recent report's halfway through the year, and we're only 40% of budget so far this year. So, anybody else have any high-level budget statement, concern, and questions? This is kind of weird looking at the all right, so just go around the horn here for individual committee or individual department reports. You want to kick us off, Doc?
Yeah. My department, everybody's underneath 50%, that's up to 30th of June. Clerks, about 48%. Parks, not a high budget item, but he's about 30%. Coroners, right at 50%. Election board, 38.3%. Emergency management, I need to visit with them, but the figures are 45.5%. So everybody's in line.
I have nothing to report. I know the health department, it's on the agenda today
Yep.
to discuss that.
The sheriff, we've talked about that over the last several months, made a big payment to the retirement fund, so that's skewing the numbers. But he's at 52.95, jail's at 43.62. One concern that he's having is line scale issues and plumbing there. He needs $20,000 to transfer this month for equipment, building, repair, having a seemingly never-ending cycle of plumbing issues there this year. I don't know what else 2020 can bring, but it seems like every car breaks down and every building's having different challenges, but that's good that he's still under budget with those unforeseen maintenance issues. Animal control's 34% and 911's 38%. Doug's here today. We have that vehicle that we have to discuss for him, but as percentage budget, he's about 38% right now. And he too has maintenance issues on vehicles, so he's working through that. I think that'll be something we'll have to address as we get down closer to the end of the year. But, and next year is a ambulance year. That's a key budget item. So that's a key budget. That's all I got. Thanks.
So the county highway has got 55 miles chip and seal done now, so they're done with that, and we got the okay from NDOT for the H&A paving. The custodian has been doing a lot of work on the courthouse boilers and surge protectors that have been hit by lightning in the past, so doing a lot of maintenance there, so things are looking good.
Yeah, I don't I don't have anything to report. Looking through, the departments that I represent, everybody is, at an appropriate, percentage to budget where you expect them to be for, a little over half the year. I do wanna, I see Cassie is here, so I know we've tried to get together in the past. I do wanna get together with you, so maybe if we can talk after
Sure.
the meeting and set a time up. And then, I've got to call in to Commissioner Brown to sit down with him as well. But otherwise, no red flags or anything that needs to be brought to the attention of the council.
No, nothing to report. I know Melinda's on the agenda for today, and I'm meeting with her after the meeting.
Got a hold of my departments and, nothing earth shattering really to report. Everybody, 40 prosecutors at 50%. Everybody else was substantially below that. I am meeting with Nick after this meeting today to discuss a few things. I think Tammy McLean is critical. Is looking forward, with the Odyssey programs and all the core interfacing, this system with this computer, whether its capabilities match up, that's gonna be a continuing software, I think, in the core system. But, yeah, everything, good things, clicking on all eight.
Anything else for the good of the order? All right, let's move on to the treasurer's report. Melinda?
Good morning.
Right.
Thank you all for allowing me to speak today. Up until 2018, the treasurer's reports were presented in person as today to the council. And then in beginning of 2018, the president of the council suggested that I started emailing that information instead of presenting it in person. I'm not too sure that's working out very well for some of you, whether it be access to email or what have you, but I just like to get some feedback from you to see, what you think is the best method or best way to communicate with this. Email, mailing them US mail, giving them to you in person at these meetings, putting them in the mailbox. I just wanna make sure that you have all the information and it's readily accessible to you.
I'm getting them email. I don't always reply that I read them or let you know that I'm reading them, but I look at them via email just fine.
Once my tablet works, I think email will be just fine, but in-person works for me or whatever works best for you.
Well, I know I sent out an email this last time and asked you to reply to see if, to make sure that you all were getting them, and I only received 2 responses. Now, Tim did reply about 30 minutes ago that he'd got them. But,
You can also get them on your computer, you can go online and get in through the email that way. I know a couple other people have done that in here. And I can do that at home, also get on Microsoft, you can show you how to do that.
Appreciate it, thank you.
well, it's great for me to just email them,
I mean, cause I email mine, you guys get mine?
Yeah.
because although you probably feel like I'm pretty outspoken, I really don't like it. So if I could just email it to you and it's working for you.
I look at it this way, I don't reply to everything because then I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna get 7 or 8 replies back and, like.
That's intentional.
Mine's intentional. How about you, Doc?
Emails.
Your email okay? Then you're still working on your.
Yep, we're gonna, she said she'd help me out with that, so.
All right. So given that, do any of y'all have any questions about the report, this month's treasurer's report?
I just have one question. Well, hold on.
Sure.
Okay. This isn't really like a report, okay. Sorry. Shouldn't.
I'll be here all week.
It's Thursday.
I know.
property taxes, year to date were $1.3 million and change. Last year they were $1.6 million and change at first June settlement. Just anecdotally, what are you seeing?
I was pleasantly surprised. I used social media a little bit during the collection period to answer some questions and kind of to encourage people who had the ability to pay by the original due date, settlement date of May 11th, to do so because, I understand that in some situations that there were hardships and that extra 60 days that the governor allowed, people took advantage of it as they should have. But, what I saw, and was totally unexpected, and actually it was a pretty crazy time for me because I didn't have my normal staff, but what I saw was pretty normal collection period, pretty normal. And, as the numbers don't lie, it was less than 10% less than what we did last year, when there wasn't a 60-day grace period.
Right. So you think that in that 60-day grace, we caught up here, to the normal collection amount? I mean, I'm not holding to the exact number.
I think we have. I think it's pretty close. We have, as of June 30th, there was, yeah, we've taken in quite a bit in these last 60 days. Not too much, more than we would have last summer. And, but not too much that we couldn't handle on
In terms of non-pays and any,
Well, we have about 100 properties that are available for tax sale right now. Now that's kind of typical. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of people who try to wait till the $11 a day. That's gonna be, you're gonna see that in the next settlement because typically they wait until, there's a, pretty, standard percentage of people who wait until the day before the week of the tax sale day.
Is that date July 31st or?
The tax sale?
No, the date that they have to pay.
They have until the day before the sale. They can pay the day of the sale.
When are the
October
2 months?
22nd.
The 2 months that they gave, that the governor gave them to pay, what?
That was July the 10th,
Oh, it was July 10th.
yes. So
So
I
they
just
are
applied,
delinquent.
I just applied penalties here within the last week or two. For those
Looks like towards your report that you collected just till the end of June was $1,100,000. That's pretty good. From May to June.
Yeah, so that right there is, I do want, I know Joshua, when I listened to you go over the financials, since you've been president, you seem to, be really strong on looking at the percentage, like we're halfway through the year, 50%. 50% of the budget, you would expect to be 50% of the budget expended. And, but I just wanted to point out that there's a lot of departments, treasurer is one of them.
oh, I agree.
We're not straight line projections. If, our business is very cyclical, so, there may be a line item that's, nothing is spent until November. So, looking at that target of 15% at the end of June, I don't know that that's really a good measure of where we are financially. And I don't know if there is a.
I would look at it year over
In
year.
most instances, it's a benchmark.
Yeah,
Well,
And I think that's why
wonder-
we all learn
not
the
etched in
departments,
stone.
we have department heads, and then when you learn your departments, you learn when your numbers and your percentages are correct.
Well, I would guess that there'd be another way of looking at it, another report where you're comparing.
we
where
look at it
you're
year
in
over year as
June,
well.
right, this year to where you're at June
Right.
previous year. That,
They have that
comparing
report.
years
They have
Yeah.
revenue and disbursements from, comparing from last year
Last
to
year,
this
year
year.
before.
So,
So,
because I kind of agree with a little bit, I mean, like the commissioners' contracts are all due at the end of the year, things like that, so.
I have some additional information that I'd like to share with y'all, today. And I have shared this information with a few of you, yes, please, individually, but I'd like to share with you collectively today. The first page here reflects, is just a synopsis, a brief synopsis of annual reports, the total revenue and expense over the last 9 years. Basically, I got this information straight from the DLGF website, and I actually included copies of the annual reports, the summary annual reports for each of those 9 years behind. But it shows that for the past 9 years, the total receipts compared to the total disbursements, and over those last 9 years, there's been a surplus of approximately $12.5 million. I've highlighted on the annual report, the first couple annual reports, the total receipts and the total disbursements for the first couple of years, so you can see where the money's coming from. And then I've also included copies of the cash book, the treasurer's cash book, which, for the past 9 years, which is, is basically a ledger of our bank accounts. And as you would expect from looking at the annual report for the last 9 years, the fund ledger balance at the end of the year for the past 9 years we see a steady increase in fund balance. The fund balance at the end of 2011 was approximately $14.6 million. To the end of 2019, it's grown to just shy of $25 million. So I just wanted to kind of maybe look at that and ask if that's something that you all have looked at in the past, because when I come to these meetings, and I kind of get the impression that we get this gloom and doom outlook on our financial status, and I just don't see it. I have actually reached out to the DLGF, the gal who conducts our workshop, and she shared with me that same opinion, and that she had tried to, over the past several years, explain or convey to the council that you're really in good shape. So it's budget time again, and I thought this would be a good time to kind of bring this up, because here we're talking about the jail project, and you're talking about taking on debt for the jail. And I just wanted to make sure that the fund balances, the current fund balances, are factored in when you're making these decisions, because it is part of the big picture. Whenever, in the past 2 years, just since 2018-19, we've had a surplus of almost $3 million each year.
Yeah, I need you to understand on that, that's not like there's $2 million in the general fund, that's all, everything cumulatively, and those bucket of monies are not transferable.
Oh, I understand. Although I'm just the treasurer, and I don't have access to, the same financial information, but I do have over 2 decades of experience in funding
understand, but
and
I mean,
working with fund accounting, and, but
the way you've reported this, it just sounds like we have $2 million just sitting there every year at the end of the year, like, it's, that's, I think that's not the case. That includes highway funds, that can always be used for highway funds, that includes local road streets, and used for dedicated,
right, and for each of those funds, when you are setting the budget and creating the new fund, then, there has to be a way, I'm not sure, because of the system that you use is a far cry from the SAP system that I was used to using in the past. There has to be a way to consider that fund balance,
Yeah.
and instead of just stockpiling it in the funds. There's a difference between the, there has to be a way to compare the budget versus actual, and utilize what is currently in the fund when you're setting the rates for the next year. So if in each individual fund, just take one fund for example, the general fund. If the general fund has a surplus at the end of the year, you project a surplus at the end of the year. Then you take that surplus into account when you're moving towards setting the budget for the next year. If you don't, then the surplus is just going to sit there, or as it's been in the last 9 years, continue to grow. So, like I said, I'm just the treasurer, but, given the jail project on the horizon and talking about taking on debt, I just think that I'm just asking you to make sure you're looking at the big picture and, make sure it includes the fund balances and how those calculate into your decisions. And, I just think it warrants asking some questions and doing some investigating and maybe getting some education.
I would like to interject here, and I appreciate the spirit of your presentation, and I think it's the right dialogue. I would be very careful. I don't know that anybody on this council has ever projected doom and gloom, which I think were your words. And I just want to be on the record as saying we've never suggested that that's the case. Part of the reason that we're in the position that we're in and you're able to present some of these numbers is just the stewardship and critical analysis that we give to these funds and the balances and the decisions that are made. So I think it's the right discussion, and I think you're right to bring it here and present it, but I just want to be really careful that nobody has ever said that we're in a position of doom and gloom or even suggested such, so.
Well, the numbers though, I mean, the numbers are black and white. So
Agreed.
what I'm
Agreed.
suggesting, what I'm suggesting is that possibly,
You don't want us to,
I
when
don't-
there's a surplus in an account, you don't want us to put anything back in the rainy day or in the savings. You want us to budget that also on top of the annual budget for the
Correct.
next year. Then how do you ever protect your county and how do you ever get the rainy day fund if you constantly are using all of it?
oh, the rainy day fund isn't, we have a rainy day fund, we have that budgeted. What I'm here as a treasurer, but I'm also here as a taxpayer. And I want to make sure that the rates aren't being set, so so I as a taxpayer and everyone else are not being overtaxed because the surplus is being ignored. And for the last 2 years, our revenue has been almost $3 million over
When you say it's
expenditures.
being ignored, what do you think it's being done with?
If you have, when you have a current balance, okay, so you have, let's just put some, if you have $1 million in a fund, and you have a budget that you project 20 million in revenue, and you project 20 million in expenses, and you set the budget for 20 million, and you don't add in the 1 million, and then you set your rates saying, I need 20 million, and I expect to spend 20 million, and you don't factor in your surplus, then the surplus is gonna continue to be there and not,
So when a
And not be budgeted.
multi-million-dollar project comes up, how do you expect to pay for all those multi-million-dollar projects?
that surplus could be additional allocations to supplement your budget. I mean,
I need
these
to,
are questions, these
I
are
need to
questions.
interject, I mean, this is a good point to talk about. You have to have cash operating balances.
Exactly, yes.
And we set those we were very disciplined in setting those at 50% of the budget, so that if in a year like this, and we've had, like the health department's an example, we had let that get a little lower, so we moved the tax rate over there so that they would bring that balance back up. But, we set the budget at 50%, or we set the cash, our goal is to have 50% cash operating balance, so that if you have the first half of the year, you don't collect your revenues. And we saw that in the health department this year where they had a challenge where they had COVID. Their expenses are heavily front-end loaded and their cash operating balance had gone below 50%, so they were in a cash crunch, in May and June. So that's why, we have 40-some million dollars of budget, what's the number? $58 million. In theory, you should have a cash operating balance around $30 million. We don't have that much.
Is
But-
that what you want to do? Or is that standard operating for every county in this?
Well, there's a lot of counties that can't pay their bills.
But I mean, is it realistic and is it, I'm just questioning, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Is it fair for the taxpayers to carry 50%, a $30 million operating fund.
Well,
Minimum
I guess
30 million.
we could just pay bills as they come,
Well, I'm
I hope
telling
you
you,
don't get
I'm telling you as a
multi-million
treasurer
dollar
that, and even in the lowest point, there's always an excess of $20 million in cash. And to me, that seems excessive. And
That's-
it wasn't always the case. As you can see, I can only go back to 2011. I think this county operated very well when we had $14 million or less, fund
I
balance.
think there's people that were around the way with different opinion on that, so, having, the appropriate amount of cash operating balance lets us operate through crises like these. And so, I appreciate you coming in, we gotta get moving on unless you have another.
No, I'm just hoping that you will reach out for some,
Does anybody have any other questions for Lauren?
thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the auditor's report.
Okay, I had emailed you my reports, couple weeks ago. So if you have any questions about those, I will.
Do we need to take any action on the memorial canon or just acknowledge that?
Well, I was gonna.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I just wanted to say, I just sent mine out by email too, do you want to continue that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the memorial canon, John Newman brought all this information in, the commissioners did, table theirs because they've just gotten it and they're gonna research it, and we have to call 811 for some of the things that he wants to do out here. But from the council, if, on page 7, it says, that he would like written acknowledgement by the council, and this is just for him, that you would have received this information, and that there is he wants me to type up a letter. He wants you to know that there are not any, expenses to the county unless there has to be some testing for underground utilities, but I don't believe you have to pay for 811.
Oh.
So, if you will allow me to write a letter for you, and I think I believe you'll be able to sign it. He's just very thorough man. He's going to change the tires to original tires on camera, and then he's gonna replace, and, not exactly what, but for all the different, branches of the, service, and that has already been approved, he's just, where's that?
Very good. Could I get a motion to approve Beth to write a letter acknowledging the receipt of this? And, all right, I have a motion by Ethan Brown, seconded by Paul Ryder. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor, aye? Aye, opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Okay, thank you. The CARES Act Committee, Monday, I had asked the commissioners to, create a committee, and going back, Mike and I have been working together, Mike Venture, the our director. And we had, sent in, and the commissioners had approved the, COVID-19 relief fund acceptance certification, and we have to do that before we can file any claims or whatever. So that's been sent in, it's been emailed and sent by mail, which they required. And the reason Mike has been helping me is, he is really involved, he's in the know more than I for this, for what can be, filed for and everything else. But I was on vacation last week, and the Farms and Bloomberg, which the commissioners have hired to help with that also, to make sure that it's the legality of the claims that we're sending. Their attorney was going to call, and I asked him to take that call for me, and he did. So, we asked, and Mike and I talked about setting the committee of having one commissioner and one council member on this committee. they will be, and it will be open door policy also for this committee. Since Warren is on the EMA board, that's, we have suggested him, and Tim, since you're my rep, I suggested you. And so they appointed you, and they appointed Warren and myself and, Mike to be on this committee. You know, so that way you guys are gonna be in and out of the EMA board. Commissioners will be in and out of what all is happening. We have up to 600, I think it was 52,000.
$652,000 for the county, and there's 6 categories that we can, get reimbursement for. And then it's a big play with the FEMA's RPA, and that, so there's just a lot of maneuvering around that we would have to do on that. And then each one of the incorporated towns got a slice of the money as well. In the conversation with the attorney last week, if one of the incorporated towns wanted to join in an overall county project, they can allocate so much of their funding back to do a county project. Otherwise, it's got to be spent on one of those 6 categories within the town.
So, Mike or Beth, is there an existing email thread on this, or?
I haven't, I was gonna talk
conversations?
to you afterwards, sir, to
Okay.
see, when a good time where we could set the first meeting, just to kinda lay the groundwork, I guess, and there's still some other questions that I have that I think from this we can figure out.
And I can have paperwork that I've received to give to you on that day
Yeah.
or earlier so we can study it. But we need to get together and make a date.
How would that
Question.
work?
If the individual towns or townships want a portion, does that come out of the 622 or is that additional?
No, that's additional.
That's additional.
I don't have the numbers with me off the top of my head. Yeoman got like $4,700. Delphi and Flora was like in the 90,000. Camden and Burlington is like between 14 and 19,000 that they can use. The townships themselves did not get any money. If they have, the incorporated areas.
But it doesn't come out as.
No, it does not come out.
622,000.
No, and the schools got their own pots too.
Okay.
The libraries did not, and we do have a request from the Delphi Library so far, but we're gonna check all that out. I mean, it's not that they're gonna automatically get it, but we need to
Right.
work with Barnes and Thornburg again and with our committee, so.
Yes.
The committee will be setting up how, when the money comes in and when the claims come in, how it goes back and.
Well, we'll be collecting claims that we can submit to get the money.
So when you get the money, how
There
will
will
that
be
be, put into like, for example, like the health department, how do you put that back in?
They will instruct us on where, but I mean, it won't all go into county general, it'll come,
It'll
go
go
back
back to
into
each
where
department for
it's
claims.
spent. Mhm.
So
I believe.
I would foresee like if you have extra payroll, will be probably the main one, then it'll go back into the payroll
And
line.
pay is one, but when we do the submission for pay, it's gotta be directly related to COVID.
Yeah, that would make sense.
I know there's some that were asking that
Yeah.
on these special pays and stuff like that, if we can't tie it directly to COVID, I don't know if the county will get reimbursed for that.
And you'll see in the transfers where, like soil and water, when she did her transfer, I created a COVID overtime line, so we can track that. And I also expressed that to her, but I've been trying to do that with each.
Because that's been my main concern, that's why I keep asking, everything that is COVID-19 is trackable.
And even if it's not, I mean, we paid her out of her regular pay,
Well, I
so
know, but I
that will
mean
be
for-
transferred, but we still have a way, if we don't have it in a fund, we can track it.
Right.
And
And I'm
we've got
not saying,
claims.
I'm just saying for reimbursement purposes.
Yes. All PPE is tracked, the overtime is tracked. Then there's of course some other like we don't have any hospital expenses, so that's a category that we don't have to worry about. And then, of course, there's 3 other categories.
And then all the claims that have come in, we can create
Thanks, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I have a couple more. Did you? Josh and I have worked on the budget for you
Get a
guys.
motion to appoint Ken.
It's already been appointed by the commissioners. It's their committee. So, yeah, I think they're. Okay.
Does anybody have any objection to, appointing Tim to that committee? We'll just consider that done by consensus.
So we've been working on the budget, I just wanted to, which brought up, some dates, and, Jackie and I went over the dates that we used last year, and we just moved them forward exactly like we did last year. This is very temporary, but we thought maybe people should get them on their agendas, so, I'll take one. And that is all I have. August 19th and 20th, they kind of like, it's just a temporary date, and the department heads do not know this yet, so that's probably when they will be
All right.
scheduled for to present their budgets, the budget hearings, so. I know we discussed about
Well, we're really impressed with the certified funds, the budget's not being certified by the state until August, so I mean, it's definitely gonna impress everything this year.
Well, some of the front figures that we're going to get won't be ready.
So, I mean, it's gonna, I mean, we're gonna have to be nimble with this budget, so.
And I think that's why some of the last year was moved out to September. Also, wasn't it?
No, and I don't think from, supposed to be very happy.
Which day? Well, I mean,
Goes on.
because it was an off, if it doesn't say it's an off day.
Can we get all departments in 4 hours?
Well, it goes past the council meeting, after your council meeting on the 20th, we started in again. And we did in the afternoon, I believe, and we did get them on there.
Cameron? Step on up, sir.
Morning, Cameron. So I'll try to make this quick as well. I know you guys have a busy morning, but I sent you guys my proposal last week, for what I'm asking for. And first of all, I just wanna tell you guys, the fact that you agreed to the full-time position for area plan is very much appreciated. I don't want to, I want you guys to just stay on the meeting and I keep that stuff. So that is very much appreciated. Along with that, I'm asking for a salary adjustment for that position, only for the reason that, she was at that salary before it went to full-time. And I know this is a really tricky time in budgets. I get it, the numbers are all over the place, it's what happened with COVID. So I spoke with Gloria, about approaching you guys, and, you know, it's a shot in the dark, but, I feel it's fair to her. She is a great asset to us, so. I presented you guys with, the description of what she does in the office. If you guys come in for a week and sit down and watch what she does, it's pretty impressive, so we're a busy office. So if I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't come in front of you guys and ask. As simple as that, so I was taught as a young man that if you don't ask, you don't know. So that's what I've got for you guys, so any questions for me?
So I'm looking here, you have 3 COVID lines for your position, and that's overtime when you were in the building, is that correct?
Correct.
And then Gloria has 2 of those.
It's, the COVID lines for me are the hours I worked during COVID.
Right.
I mean, cause I'm not.
And it's the
my job
same
is
for
in the
Gloria.
building. Yeah, well, Yeah, that's when I brought her in. I tried not to bring her in until it was absolutely necessary. And I brought her in just a few times and it was jamming everything in, getting the payroll or the money to the treasurer, get the things and get out. But mine was a little bit different because I was here all day. And honestly, I was here 12, 13, 14 hours sometimes, so, hers was just when, as needed for the COVID part, yes.
So there's, from my perspective, oh, go ahead.
I guess I don't understand, because I thought you weren't supposed to be looking at that. Is that right?
Who was supposed to? Me?
Yeah. Or you just weren't supposed to be going out to visit jobs or something?
I was never told that. I delivered permits in person, or took them out to, I mean, the world had to keep going for,
Remember when I had the lady on the lake that had called and you said that you weren't even supposed to be?
I wasn't supposed to be face-to-face contact with them, so I was taking applications out, putting them in their mailbox, or wherever they would like me to. But since they couldn't come to the courthouse, I was doing whatever I could to get them applications, because a lot of people didn't have computers. So in order to keep people building and keep the world moving in Carroll County instead of coming to a standstill, I made every effort to get them what they needed. And then some of them would bring it back to me, some of them didn't want to leave their house. So I didn't have the opportunity to not work. You can't just stop area plant, people need to build. And we had, our numbers were crazy through those months. We had a lot of new homes
The
coming
parking
in.
lot at Menards reflects that.
Yeah, we ran the county out of lumber. So, I mean, I didn't have the choice not to work. And there were some times where I couldn't get stuff done in an 8-hour period just because it was stacking up. So, that's the conversation I had with you, was I wasn't gonna go out and meet people face to face. That's just,
Why are you making the transfer now and not at the end of the year? What brought that?
the COVID part, I'm gonna have that for, I guess I was told that might as well just do it all on request, and do it all now.
On this request? The 8-page thing? Report there.
I didn't receive that.
I sent the whole packet to everybody. Got this sheet, it's got a breakdown of the,
What date was that, Josh?
It's 7/15. Document titled, salary adjustment, I mean, the email is titled salary adjustment, attachments titled council request.
it shows that the entire county council. And you, and Cindy,
Do we need to do it right now? With the-
well, that's,
Things are still being up in the air with, we're not sure, I mean, the COVID is around for a while, we're not sure where this is going.
Yeah, I mean, usually we would adjust these at the end of the year, like salary wise. I mean, there's really two things on the table. The transfer for the salary, I mean, it is what it is. We have to pay for the salary ordinance, so I mean, it'll get done sooner or later. My thought would be, like, there's no guarantee we don't go into another COVID thing in another month or two, and then we have to redo all that again anyway, so it's better.
and I did approach, I talked to Paul, and I talked to my president of the board, and, there he was, if you're going, we might as well just do it, instead of approaching you again at the end of the year, just do it all today, and I certainly get your point, but that's what they recommended, and that's what I did, so, I mean, like I said, it's a shot in the dark, she asked me to tackle this before COVID, and that stopped it for a couple, 3 months, so I told her when we get back to somewhat normal life, I would at least approach you guys and get your thoughts, so.
Yeah, and that's, so that, the salary issue is the second issue. I mean, so we have a transfer for the COVID issue.
How many did not get their email?
I don't have it.
My tab was broken.
Did you get it?
I remember seeing it open it, but I haven't opened it on mine.
I didn't pick it up.
Yep.
I guess the salary issue was that it was so close to budgeting, and I know We don't like to hear that, but how can we increase somebody's salary right now with all this is going on? Make it really get the whole picture and get to that area.
Yes, I feel it was based on part-time thing, and it was moved to full-time, and you can address that. That's the proposal.
Did we do that during budget? When did we make that?
We changed her for full-time during the budget cycle.
Yeah, it's a full-time position now.
Right, we established her.
But there was no,
Last
there was
year,
no
or
salary.
last-
Just do it this one.
No, we did.
As a state, I can imagine us going from part-time to full-time.
Yeah, it was
Salary.
done in the budget cycle.
It was, but it went down, is what he's saying. It went to.
It went from 15
It went to what that
Well,
position is.
We've given her, so I just did back,
I
so,
remember now.
so we gave her, she was running the department, well, she was the only employee for the department. We gave her a raise between July-ish, October, I don't remember.
I think there was a gap, if there wasn't anybody in there.
Right, so we gave her a pay raise for some period of time in 2019. Then the director was hired, Cameron was hired, and her pay then